Hi, I'm Eileen, owner of Just Lookin Gallery, and we're here today with two of my favorite ladies, Artist Evita, who will be at the gallery this weekend for a show, and collector Barbara. So thank you for joining us, ladies.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with you, Evita. I've known you now 20 several years.
Oh, yes. Almost 30 years.
We met in Philadelphia.
Yes, at the
October Gallery
show, and I was a wee bit tired.
I'll pretend I was too. So I heard you had an interesting reaction when we first came into your booth.
Yes, so they came into my booth, her and her late husband Bob, and I said that they looked like a couple that just came out of Woodstock. He had the long beard, and she had the fire engine red hair, and I said, "Wow, they look like rock and rollers." But they were the nicest people, and she wanted to carry my work, and nobody else would. So I was so excited. And
I was excited too because October Gallery show at that point had been going on for quite a while.
Right.
I knew almost every artist there. I was bored by 3/4 of them, and the other quarter I already represented. So I walked into Evita's booth, and it's like, oh my God, she's not copying anybody, and this is fresh, and it's her vision. So I was really excited too.
Yeah, and because of Frank Frazier, I would travel with him, and he took me to that show, and I did not know what to expect, but it turned out to be a great show. It was wonderful.
Which was, good for you because a lot of the artists there didn't make any money at the show.
Right.
Which was a shame.
Yeah.
And Barbara, the first time you walked in here, since we're talking about first impressions.
First time I walked into the gallery, I saw Evita's work, and I was awestruck. Now, my budget was small, so I had to start with a small piece, but that was actually 2006. And I've been buying her work ever since then. I just love it. She keeps growing. She keeps expanding her horizons. And everything that she does it just keeps getting better. So I'm very pleased to own her art.
And it's funny because whenever you buy one of my artists that doesn't know who you are, I always explain to them how your collection features everybody from artists that are just getting started to ones we read about in books and see in museums.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, variety is important. I like the fact that I started collecting new artists because you helped me with that. And then I started looking at other artists like John Biggers and Sam Gilliam and Elizabeth Catlett, Camilla Lewis. And I started reading the history of those people and what their contribution was to the arts, to the Black art world. So I felt it was important to have them in my collection as well.
I'm so happy to have Samella's work here at the gallery.
Yeah.
Because I have the first probably 6 or 8 editions of Black Art Quarterly. Which would have never happened if it hadn't been for Samella Lewis.
That's correct.
And all the things that she did, as a teacher, as an activist, to help promote other artists too.
She paved the way for people like me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, she did.
I mean, Margaret Burroughs did too.
Yes. And I had the opportunity to meet her before she passed.
Oh,
it was
wonderful.
Delightful. She had a show in Port Arthur in someone's home with collector. And she was there, and I got a chance to meet her. It was just fabulous. She was a very strong, determined woman. She said, "Don't settle for anything."
She gave you good advice.
She gave me good advice.
And
I followed that.
Yes, yes.
So what drives you when you walk into your studio in the morning or afternoon, since you're an
No,
artist?
it's in the morning. I usually get in my studio at least about 10 o'clock every day, hopefully between 10 and 12. And what drives me is just to create artwork. I just love creating. I love the texture, the different colors of the paper. Since I don't use a lot of commercial papers anymore,
right.
I paint my own paper. So I get excited. I get so excited about using all of these different mediums and making all of these different patterns.
And your end result is phenomenal.
Yes,
phenomenal.
yes, thank you. So what drives me is just the fact of creating artwork. That's what drives me. And when people admire and they get what I'm trying to say,
yes,
that's I just get so excited.
It's beautiful.
Mhm.
Well, I've said it many times. When an artist's heart is truly in their work, that's what we as collectors respond to.
Mhm.
I mean, I was a collector before I got into the gallery business.
Mhm. And one thing that I get asked a lot is, why don't I do a lot of political pieces? And I said there's a lot of artists that do that already.
Yes.
But I want to do, from my experience, I grew up in a very happy home. I had great parents, great grandparents, a great childhood, and that's what my work reflects.
Yes.
It has a little sadness in some things, but mostly I do work about the family, Black joy, Black love. That's what I want my work to say.
Yes.
And people get it. They get it.
That's one of the things.
And
Yeah.
I
people
appreciate
always
about
comment
it.
about the buttons in your work.
Yes, so the buttons came from my grandmother. My grandmother passed in 2016. And I was up here. Remember I came
Yep.
to your studio. I came up here to the gallery. I had got a call that my grandmother passed. But she was a seamstress.
Oh.
And she had tons and tons. Her and her sister were both seamstress. And when they passed, I inherited all their buttons. So I take the buttons and I integrate them in my work.
What a lovely story.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
Now, obviously, over the 20 plus years that we've been together, I've watched your work evolve.
Yes.
What do you feel made some of the changes in your style over the years?
I think it's refinement because I just continue to practice, and practice makes perfect. So I just kept, an artist is their worst critique.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my early work was something that I was happy with, but it just was not there for me. It just something just was missing.
But it was there for the collector.
It was there for the
Yes,
collectors,
definitely
but
there for the
but
collectors.
for me as an artist, I was not settled with it. And an artist always is his worst critique. So I just kept refining and refining and refining and refining. And I feel that I still have room to grow.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that an artist will always refine and evolve until they pass away.
Are there mediums that you still want to try besides collage?
Oh yes, I want to try everything. I'm looking at doing some ceramics. I want to do quilts. Yeah, right now I'm a printmaker and I do collage, and I integrate both of them in my work because I do stamping and all of those things. But I want to get my hands on clay. I want to do that. I want to do some wood. I want to sculpt wood. Because
Wonderful.
Elizabeth Catlett is one of my favorites,
Yes.
and all her sculptures are just so phenomenal. So I want to just experience that. Not saying that something's gonna come out of it, but I just want to do it.
When we look at all the other mediums that you've tackled and you've done such wonderful things with them. I
Yeah.
look at your wood cuts
Yeah.
and your mixed media pieces
Uh-huh.
and your
Calligraph.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny because when I'm trying to explain calligraphs to
Mhm.
people, I say think of it as a collage that's on something that can be inked and printed
Mhm.
multiple times.
Mhm.
Because that's the easiest way to help people understand calligraph.
That's a good
Mhm.
definition.
So I went to a workshop at a local college, junior college in Dallas, and I was introduced to calligraph. I am totally hooked. I said, the best of two worlds, printmaking and collage together. I just love it.
Yes,
I
it is.
love it. I love it. I just love it. And the technique that I use to collage on my prints is called chicolate. So
Yes.
that's a French term, a bougie term. for
Well,
it.
it just means that you have to put it on something that can take
Exactly.
being printed.
Exactly.
Barbara, what got you started collecting?
I've always loved art. I used to draw as a child, and I got away from it when I went to college and got more into earning a living and all that. And I always bought small pieces of art. The first piece that I bought, I guess when I first came out in the 70s, was a piece by Annie Lee from a small piece. And I still have called a hot water cornbread.
Wow.
So I still have that. That was an original piece that she did. She signed it and everything. So I still have that. But then I focused on my career. And once around 2005, 2006, about 15, 20 years ago, I actually started really researching Black art. I started going to shows. I started going to galleries. I started going places. And I started fixing a budget. Because the budget is what helped me decide what I could get in addition to the pieces that I like. Sometimes it influenced the size. Sometimes it was the artist. Then I started going to auctions. I looked at auctions. So there were multiple sources, but it always came back to Just Lookin. I wasn't look back here. And I always walked away with something that I truly loved. So that was always
Well, look, people will tell you I don't let them buy anything out of here that I don't. If I don't feel that you have the passion for it, I'll try to talk you out of buying it.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
that is very true.
And so what's so awesome about her is, I know that she has to make a living, but she does this because she's passionate.
Yes.
And she really cares about the artist.
Yes.
She really.
well, y'all are my family.
Yeah, she calls me for my birthday.
I called Barbara on her birthday.
Yeah,
That's true.
she totally loves the people, and I think that if she did this without getting paid, she still would do it.
Yes.
And
In the early years, I absolutely
Yeah.
did this without getting paid.
And me too. I didn't get. I had to work another job. I was a chef for several years.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, I had Bob, and he made
Yeah.
really good money. So
Mhm.
he said, "Follow your dream," and here it is.
30 years later.
Been in this location, 32 years
Wow.
in the business. In this location, 27. So.
Wow.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And you watch it evolve.
Yes, the racks on the wall and changing the colors and everything. I mean, it's just been great.
I do truly feel blessed that so many artists have entrusted me to, promote them, take care of their art,
Mm-hmm.
And I also appreciate your framing. I mean, you are very, very particular about how you frame your pieces. You really want the frames to complement.
Well, I will
Pieces.
admit, framing a couple of Evita's pieces, I looked at my framer and I said, why can't I just everything in black, white, or gold like everybody else? This one took me forever. It truly was on the design table. And then I just happened to look up and go, that's crazy, but I'm going to try it. And there it is.
It's
Yes,
beautiful.
it is. It's beautiful.
Well, for me, it had the same kind. I have this thing about frame should have the same energy as the piece. So it's not just color and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's also got to have the right energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And to me, because this piece has got, downward motion anyway, and then the modeling in the frame, I thought just brought out the faces.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all about faces, which is why there's faces all over my walls.
And that's why I do portraits, because I study people. I love watching people.
Yes.
And I love to see the emotions in their faces and their eyes and just the gestures. I love people.
Speaking of eyes, one of the things I love about you is not every piece you do has brown eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I have tons of paper and I keep every single scrap of paper that when I clean up my studio, I separate all my little pieces of tracing paper from the scraps. I sit down, I sweep up everything, and then I sit down and I separate the papers. People think I'm crazy, but no. So with the little scraps, I get all of these variations of color, and I use those for the eyes. Some of them I use for the eyes. Because I might get a little piece, because I use jelly printing, I use stamping, and I might get a little piece that has a lot of variation in it, and I use that for the eyes sometimes. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I like too is it reminds me of people from my past. Your artwork does. There are pieces that I look at and I go, oh, that's like my second grade teacher. Or,
Yeah.
like
Right.
I tell you with Twilla, it's like, oh, that's the little girl I went to school with.
Well,
Or-
that's like when I was trying to find a name for this show. Because I have to name my shows.
Yes.
And that's why I started with memories.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
And memories and montages just work.
That's what everybody tells me. They said, oh, that reminds me of my grandmother. Or that
Yes.
reminds me of that lady that was down the street that used to make cornbread or something.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know. I just sit down and these people just come to my head. And some of them remind me of people that I knew when I was little. But some of them are just people that I make up. But they probably are somebody that I've met in my lifetime.
Yes.
And it's just in they're
lodged in your
they're
memory.
lodged in my memory.
But see, I think if you're going to do faces,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have that connection with, that person.
Right.
Even though you're kind of doing them in the abstract. It's not realism. It's not like,
Mhm.
okay, here's a photographic image of this person.
Mhm.
but I think you have to have that kinship with them
Yeah.
to really bring that warmth to your art.
Yeah, and some of my works are a memory,
Yes.
and then the memory transpires into a face. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That makes sense.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Barbara, if you can ask Evita a question.
I think I would probably ask, and I think I may have asked you this
Mhm.
before, is about the mediums that you've chosen to do, like the polygraphs, the collage, all of that. And now I think about your drawing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now do you want to get more into just drawings, just without the collage part or without the collage, you know, I mean, just
Collage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No. I did that. I have one piece here that I did just drawing.
Mm-hmm.
It has to have collage in it. It just
Okay.
has to have. Because collage is the essence of me now.
Okay.
I've been doing it since 1998.
Mm-hmm.
And what is so awesome is I started out painting. I
Okay.
painted Impressionism.
Oh.
Yeah, that's how it started. And I had a dream that an angel came to my door and gave me sketches because I was like stuck. I said, because people were telling me that work is just very derivative. Everybody's been painting like that. You got to do something that sticks out. So I prayed. I said, Lord, I said, you know that I wanted to be a famous artist. You know I wanted to do something that's different. I said, but I just don't know what to do. I had a dream. An angel came to my house and said, I'm a messenger from your father. I said, do you know my father? And it said, no, it's from your heavenly father. And it said, if you do these sketches, you will be famous. I mean, you'll be very successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked at them and I was really, really nervous. And I woke up the next day and I said, was this really a dream? Or was this real?
Mm-hmm.
So I did the sketches and I started showing them to my friends. And they said, wow, that's really different, Evita. Because I was doing Impressionism. And
Very different from Impressionism.
very,
different.
very different, very different. And so they said, why don't you just try it? So I tried it, and the first piece that I did was three ladies dancing, and it was very different than I'm doing now, but they still was collage, and it got chosen for the Concord Square poster at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be, and I continued. I didn't go back.
What about watercolor? Have you ever thought about doing watercolor?
I integrate watercolor in the papers that I paint.
Okay.
Yeah, but watercolor is a very unforgiving medium.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. It's a very difficult. And I have patience, but I don't have that much patience.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
funny because, if I talk to a couple of my artists that are really good with watercolor,
Yeah.
like Charlie and Grace Keys,
Yeah.
Grace is getting ready to go to Africa.
Yes.
And I said, so you're going to, obviously you're going to be gone for a while. Are you going to do any art? She goes, oh yeah, I'm going to take some watercolors with me. She goes, because they're easy. I can just knock them out. I'm like,
Everybody can't just knock
Exactly.
those out.
No.
Exactly.
No.
I've always joked that you get younger artists that don't know, they're trying to do watercolor, but they don't really know what they're doing. And the paper always ends up looking like a roller coaster.
Right.
Or, like waves, because they don't know how much water and all
Yeah.
those kind of things.
Yeah.
And then the colors bleed sometimes.
A lot.
So,
Right.
mhm.
So I use watercolor as just a reference part or a source to paint my paper.
Okay.
So I use different techniques, maybe with salt or resist, and that's what I use watercolor for. But to do a face or something,
Oh, we have a question from the chat.
no. Okay.
Lil Ray of Sunshine on Instagram asked, can you discuss any challenges or pushback you received while promoting your work?
Oh wow, I have gotten a lot of pushback. Can I say it? Sure. I got a pushback because of my dear sister right here. I love her. I got pushback because she's a white person, a Caucasian person, and she was selling African American art. And a couple of artists were very upset with me because I was going with a gallery that was selling black art but was not African American, not black owned. But I told them that I said she cares about me and she promotes my work. and she pays me. So I got that pushback. I got pushback because I wouldn't do prints. I wouldn't do commercial prints. I said I didn't want to do that. And they said, you don't want to make money? I said, I would rather sacrifice and make much more money at the end than compromising my craft. So I got pushed back with that.
Well, but you were right to do that.
Yeah.
Because a whole bunch of the artists that did lots and lots and lots of prints are sitting with warehouses full of lots and lots of reproductions.
Yes.
I mean, I get pushed back because I won't sell giclées.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I get all kinds of pushback over that. From artists and, you know, I won't say from collectors because I explain that I'm not going to sell anything that I won't buy and I won't buy a giclée. So to me, why would I want somebody else to buy something I wouldn't buy?
Exactly.
But artists that do a lot of those, you know, types of techniques get a little upset.
And what I do was when I do a print, a hand pull print, that image is not ever used on anything else. I do an image just for that print. So you won't see Twyla or you won't see Miss Priscilla on any other piece of artwork because I did that just for that print. And I was taught back in the day.
That is something that I truly appreciate because I have seen other artists who are very talented who have the images all over the place. You know, like you see them on shirts and things like that, and that's good for them because it helps them to make money and support their livelihood.
Well, yeah, you know, look, making money obviously is important, but so is integrity. And to me, again, I got into this because I was an art collector, so my sensibilities lie as a collector. I don't want to spend a couple $1,000s on a piece of art and then find it on a T-shirt. That would upset me very much.
Yeah.
Just turn it off.
Oh, it's on.
All right, slight delay there because, you know, we've all got phones lying all over the place.
That's definitely my fault. I apologize for that. No one ever calls me like that. So you know.
I call you all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
But I usually do it earlier in the day.
That's true. That's true.
I think we have texted at midnight once or twice.
Yes, those late hours. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and now that I'm getting more clientele on the West Coast, I keep calling it the left coast, but you know, on the West Coast, I'm still, you know, texting and answering phones, my cell phone at 11 o'clock at night because it's a normal hour for. I mean, you know, some of my you know, some of my West Coast people, they, you know, get home, they eat, and then they get on my website. So it's 8 o'clock out there, and they're like, "Oh, I really like this piece," and you know, they call, and so someday I'll get enough sleep. But that's
sleep when you die.
Yeah, that's how I've always felt. But I mean, that's part of the joy of the business too.
Exactly.
Is the discovery.
Yes.
You know, I still love so many people that come through here. I am still this many years into it selling people their first piece of art, first original piece of art. You know, I've been doing that since the beginning.
And I think one of the things that I appreciated was the fact that I knew I had limited funds in the beginning, but that you did encourage me to do layaway.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that I think lots of people won't go into galleries because they're intimidated.
Right.
They know they don't have enough money to buy a certain piece, or they feel like they might just be ignored when they walk in.
When we were setting this gallery up, you know, one of the things that was super important to me is when you walked in the door, you felt at home. You know, I didn't call this area the living room. One of my clients actually named this the living room many years ago.
And one thing she does also is educates the collector or the buyer. She educates them and kind of walks them through the whole process of collecting artwork as well.
But I mean, I have gotten a lot of clientele because other galleries either don't have payment plans, which I think is ridiculous, where they have very rigid, it has to be this much and you can only have this many payments. I just want a payment every month. You know, I want my art, make sure my artists are fed and get paid.
Yes.
You know, and after that, I don't care if it takes you, you know, 3 payments or 6 payments. You do what's comfortable for you. Collecting art should be a pleasure, not a burden.
Absolutely.
You know, and I mean, it's not like we're not putting out real money. most of us can't just go, oh, here's my credit card, charge all of that.
Right.
I can't. I mean, I can now a little bit better, but I couldn't in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I've called many an artist and said, I really want this piece. How many payments can I make?
But that's important. That keeps.
Oh, we have a 2-part question.
Okay.
First one, Evita, have you ever done the portrait of someone famous?
I did. Shirley Chisholm, and she had the privilege of selling it.
Yep, that is living happily in South Carolina.
And the second question is, quote, to the collector, do you have a list of potential artists to collect?
I do. I have a few that I would like to collect, but they're so far out of my price range that they will probably stay on that list forever. I'd love to have a piece by Amy Sherrill. I would love to have a piece by, I have a small sculpture by Kahende Wale, but I'd love to have one of his paintings. So the people that I'd like to collect now are just so far out of my price range that I just have to keep them in my dream list.
Yeah, and I gave up trying to buy an Alfred Conte original, so I'm getting the silk screen that Curly just did.
Oh yes,
But I do love the piece.
I do. I love his work also.
His work is phenomenal.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the Instagram
Oh,
questions.
okay. Well, now that we've been chatting, off camera and on camera for a while,
Mm-hmm.
what would you like to tell your collectors and potential collectors?
I would just tell them to stay true to what they believe and don't compromise their collection. Collect good, solid artists and collect what you like.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
just what's the new fad
Yeah.
or who's the hottest thing, but collect who you like.
My whole
Who you
thing,
fall in love with.
yeah,
Yes.
my whole
Yeah.
thing is if it doesn't talk to you, don't buy it.
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly.
I look at pieces I bought 30, 40 years ago, and they're like that big because that's what I could afford.
Mhm.
But they're originals, and I love them. I mean, they still, every time I walk past, make me smile.
Mhm.
Whether it's the, remembering where I got them, remembering my relationship with the artist or the
Mhm.
conversation we had about the piece, because I ask way too many questions. Why did you do this?
And I also think sometimes it's important to develop a relationship with the artist.
Mhm.
That way you can find out more about them as a person. And I think that helps to develop the relationship with them and the art. Because when I met April Harrison, I saw April's artwork before I met her, and I fell in love with the artwork. And then I contacted her,
Mhm.
and I called, and we're friends to this very day.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have a number of pieces of her work, but we're very good friends, and I love her as a person as well as an artist.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
well,
think
even
that's
Charlie
important.
Palmer, I had seen his work before I met him,
Mhm.
and we met by chance.
Mm.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
So,
And I'm seeing that more and more that collectors reach out to me and they said, I want to know you as a person.
Yes.
Yeah.
well,
I
social
have-
media
yeah.
has helped so
It
much with that.
has.
It
It
has.
has.
And
Yeah, it
especially
really
with
has.
COVID, I think we're getting to meet people more that you might not be able to see because of the Zoom and
Well, when I first started collecting, there was no social media, there was no
Right.
internet,
right.
and there, most of the books I owned didn't exist.
Mhm.
So I had to get around artists. But back in the 70s and the 80s, famous black artists were doing outdoor festivals
Mhm.
because that was one of the few venues open to them.
And that's all we had.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because there were very few people that were selling African American work back
Mhm.
then.
Yeah.
So we had to go where we knew people were buying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Mhm.
mean, I look at artists like Charles White and Norman Lewis. I mean, people phenomenal artists who had to do other jobs to make
Absolutely.
ends meet.
Well, I mean, Charles White was lucky because he got a ton of teaching fellowships.
Yes.
He
Mhm.
died right around the time I finally realized that I needed to collect art.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I missed the boat on that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I love Charles
I
White's
do
work.
too. Love
Yeah.
his work.
Phenomenal.
And most of the artists, and it's funny because Charles White, of all artists, it seems to be the most common thread among the artists that do figurative work.
Mhm. Mhm. Work
But I
is
mean,
phenomenal.
I was lucky enough to meet Ernie Critchlow and hear about Spiral from Ernie Critchlow.
That's amazing.
I couldn't
is
read about it in
amazing.
books, and there was no internet. But it was
Mhm.
like, yeah, we were all kind of mad, so we got together.
That's what happens. That's
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
There's all those things that happen at specific points in time that keep getting us to the next mile, the next goal.
Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, both for artists and within the gallery business.
Exactly.
And you've been fortunate also because a lot of galleries that I could go to 20 years ago are no longer around. A lot of them have gone out of business.
Well, some people get in the gallery business for the wrong reasons. And I've been lucky enough because my artists do love me that even through the hard times, and Evita can tell you that, I mean, even through the times where it's like, God, none of us are making any money for a minute, we still stuck together because we absolutely believed that all of this was going to happen.
Yes.
You can't give up. And I think one of the things that happens with people in general, not just in the gallery business, is you hit those couple of bumps in the road and that's it. You're out. That's it. You can't do it anymore. For me, it just made me more determined.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we have another question from JCH Porter. Does the artist have a favorite artist?
Oh, I have several. My favorite living artist is Deborah Roberts. And my favorite deceased artist, I have two, is Romare Bearden and Elizabeth Catlett.
Best.
Yeah.
Now, if you talk about Bearden, and obviously you do collage,
Mm-hmm.
how much do you feel his influence? I mean, your collages
Oh.
obviously are very different than his.
Yes. Well, he has influenced me, I would say 100%, because I studied him when I was in college.
Okay.
So I just used to just peruse his books and read about him, and I watched documentaries about him. I just loved how he just developed something, and he stuck to it, even in the midst of all of this racial inequality.
Well, yeah, I mean, you talk about having jobs while you're trying to do
Yes.
your art.
And
Bearden's
he
a prime
worked.
example.
He worked way until the almost to the end of his
He did.
career. He had to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he had to.
When he finally settled into St. Martin's, which is when those adorable watercolors started
Oh
happening.
yeah.
And it's so funny. I've been to shows where people walk right past those because they don't know it's
They
Bearden's
didn't know
work.
it was him.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're different. They're very different.
Yeah, and
But-
he had a nice touch with watercolor.
And what's so awesome about him, and that's the same thing with me as well, that my work all doesn't look the same, and his work didn't all look the same. I do collage, but I do different variations, and he did so many variations, and some of the times you didn't even know that was his, like you said.
Right.
I like not having your work as a cookie cutter,
Right.
that
Yes.
everything looks all the same.
Yes.
I like to, if I feel like doing this kind of style, but not too far from my main style. But I like variations.
Yes.
I get bored, so I have to keep it fresh. I have to keep it moving. That's just me.
And as collectors, we appreciate that.
Yes. Because you told me to say, well, she wants one of this style and she wants one of that style. Because if I did all the same, I don't think that I have a collector that would buy various pieces because they would all look the same.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
most of your collectors here definitely come back for a second, third. Thank you, Barbara. Fourth piece.
Fourth piece. Yes.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Okay, we have another question in chat from Remy. Any tips on not having the desire to create due to depression?
I do suffer from depression, and I work through it. I start doodling, I start sketching, I take a walk, I play music, because I know that the depression is something that is bothering me. So for me to work it through, I work it through my drawings, through prayer, through just walking, through singing. I can't sing, but I will sing. I will start jumping around and dancing. I will do all of those things to get me out of that funk. Because I do suffer from depression. But it's not as bad since I I've been a vegan for a very long time, but I used to eat a lot of processed food. But now, since I don't eat a lot of processed food and I have eliminated a lot of sugar out of my diet, I don't really suffer from depression. But for sometimes, I might miss my grandmother. My framer passed away this year from COVID, and I start thinking about her, and I get a little depressed, and I just shake it off. I really do, because if I get depressed, I get stuck and I can't work. So I just shake it off. I start running around my studio or go up and down the stairs, and I get that adrenaline pumping, and I'm fine after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have another question from Lake's Edge. Have you ever been surprised to find out that someone famous owns one of your works?
Well,
Gotta tell that story. You have to tell that story.
well, it wasn't really a surprise. It was planned. So one gallery in New York had been trying to sell my work to Denzel Washington, and it came to fruition. He bought several pieces, more than 5. And then I was up one night. I was doing an IG Live, and then one of my collectors called me and said, I want to tell you how I found out about you. He said Samuel Jackson was talking about you on an interview. And I said, what was he talking about me on an interview? And he said, well, he saw your work at the Washingtons. I said, oh. So I wanted to find out about this. I wanted to find out if he that Denzel gifted him a piece or whatever. So I went and looked at it on Instagram and found out that he posts himself. So I sent him a message. I'm fearless. I'm not scared of anything. So I posted, I sent him a message, and Mr. Jackson, he answered me, to my surprise. And he did it in 24 hours. I was so excited. So I posted a piece, and he liked it, and it was a smaller piece. And then I said, well, I have this piece that I think you'll like. He said, well, I want to buy a gift for my wife for her anniversary. And so the piece was called Ain't No Woman Like the One I Got. And it was a large piece, 30 by 40. And he asked me how he can purchase it. And I gave him my number, and he called me. And I almost passed out. And he said, hey, Evita, this is Sam. I'm like his homie. And I said, wait a minute. I said, hold on. I said, I'm talking to Samuel Jackson on the phone. And I said, you're going to have to give me a minute, because I said, my heart is about to drop out of my... I said, just hold on. And, we talked about, that I was going out of town. I was actually coming here last year. And he told me, why was I traveling during COVID? And I told him, I said, my bags are packed. My ticket is done. So I have to go. And so I said, when I come back, I said, we'll settle. And we settled. And I have a picture on my feed of him and his wife holding the piece in their living room.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started getting a bunch of calls after he posted
Exactly. And then she sold pieces to Susan Taylor and to Star Jones.
Yep.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yep. That was when the Puck Building show
Yes,
was still going on.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. And there might be some other ones that I don't know about, but those are the ones that I do know. And great memories.
Okay, well, those are all the questions we have at this moment.
Okay.
All right. Any more questions you'd like to ask Evita?
No, I don't think so.
Well, since I want you to get some rest, and it's
Okay.
getting close to sunset,
Yes.
so we got to get you to your hotel.
Okay.
So thank you much for being here, Barbara.
Yes.
As always,
It's been
great
such a
time.
pleasure. I've had a great time.
Yes, and thank you for believing in me all these years.
Your
And
work,
supporting.
your work, and your personality made that easy.
Okay,
thank you for that.
All right.
And thank all of you that have watched.
Thank you.